Okay, let's just jump right in. Imagine this. What if, for 36 minutes, the entire global financial system just evaporated? I'm not talking about a slow burn, I mean a sudden, terrifying poof, it's gone. This isn't some sci fi plot. It's exactly what happened during the 2010 flash crash. And believe me, the story of who was behind it, it's way stranger than anything Hollywood could dream up.
So let's set the scene. It's May 6th, 2010, precisely 2:42 p.m. Eastern Time. On trading floors all over the world, from New York to London, it's just another afternoon, the usual buzz. But nobody knows that in just a few moments, the very foundation of the global economy is about to crack wide open.
And here's how it begins. It's just a flicker on a screen. The Dow Jones, that big market indicator, suddenly dives 500 points. You can just picture it, right? Traders everywhere just stop and stare at their screens. What is going on? Is this some mistake? A fat finger trade? A massive sell-off?
But before anyone can even begin to figure it out, that flicker turns into an absolute free fall. The market tanks another 400 points. We are now down 900 points in total. I mean, think about that. That's almost a 9% drop in 5 minutes. This isn't just trading anymore. This is a full-on nosedive into financial chaos. The sheer scale of this is, well, it's just insane. In what felt like the blink of an eye, $1 trillion in market value just disappeared, vanished. We're talking about huge, stable companies like Accenture going from $40 a share to literally a single penny. It was like a black hole opened up and just swallowed $1 trillion whole.
And you could see the panic in real time. On live TV, the anchors, the so-called experts, were just as stunned as everybody else. You could hear it in their voices. They were asking the exact same questions we all were. Nobody had a clue what was going on. Was this a terrorist attack? Some kind of cyber warfare?
But here's the really wild part. How fast this whole thing went down. I mean, look at this timeline. At 2:42 p.m., the chaos starts. Just 5 minutes later, at 2:47, we're at rock bottom. And then, and this is maybe the craziest part, by 3:07, it just snaps back. Almost all of it. The entire crisis, from the brink of collapse to almost total recovery, happened in just 36 minutes. 36 minutes. So, just like that, the immediate danger seemed to be over. The whole world took a collective breath. But for the FBI, for the Department of Justice, the hunt was just beginning. They weren't looking for a simple glitch. They were hunting for a monster, a sophisticated terror cell, a rival government, somebody powerful enough to pull off $1 trillion disappearing act.
And this manhunt went on for 5 long years. Imagine investigators chasing digital ghosts through miles and miles of fiber optic cables all around the world. They were convinced they were after some shadowy group of Wall Street masterminds, or maybe a catastrophic bug in the system itself. So, after all that time, who did they find was responsible? Well, this is where the story goes from a thriller to something else entirely. The theories were huge, right? Terrorists, foreign spies, Wall Street villains. The reality? The guy who brought the global economy to its knees was a 36-year-old day trader, working in his pajamas, from his childhood bedroom in his parents' house in a quiet London suburb. I'm not kidding. The tabloids, of course, had a field day. They nicknamed him the Hound of Hounslow. But Navinder Singh Sarao wasn't some evil mastermind. He was a man with Asperger's syndrome, and this gave him this almost superhuman ability to focus. See, for him, the market wasn't about money or risk. It was a game, a giant, complex video game that he was absolutely determined to beat. Now, to get how he won this game, you gotta know who he was playing against. His opponents were these things called high-frequency trading algorithms, or HFTs. Think of them as super fast trading robots. That operate in microseconds. That's a millionth of a second. They're basically programmed to see what regular folks are about to buy or sell, and then jump in front of them to skim a tiny profit. They do this thousands of times a second. In the world of the market, these HFTs are the top predators. But Navinder, he just sat there, day in and day out, watching the raw data flash across his screen. And he had this incredible aha moment. He realized that these billion-dollar algorithms, this so-called smart money, they weren't actually smart at all. They were just predictable. They were just lines of code following a script. And anything that's just following a script, well, it can be tricked. And that's exactly what he did.
He built a weapon, a digital tool to exploit that very weakness. This is where we get into the nuts and bolts of it, the art of the bluff. He basically perfected a way to fool the robots, using a technique we now know by its very illegal name, spoofing.
Okay, so how did this spoofing thing work? It was actually brilliantly simple, kind of like faking a panic at a fancy art auction. So step one, Navinder would place these huge, totally fake orders to sell millions of dollars in futures. Step two, the HFT robots would see this giant wall of sell orders and do what they're programmed to do. They'd panic. They'd start selling off their own stuff for real to avoid losses. Step three, all that real selling from the robots would, of course, drive the market price way down. And then, step four, the magic trick. Right before his own fake orders could actually go through, poof, he'd cancel them. They were never real. And then, step five, he'd swoop in, buy up contracts at that new super low price he just created, and sell them for a profit moments later when the market bounced back. Genius, right? So did it work? Oh, you have no idea. Let's put this into perspective. Your average day trader, right? They're thrilled if they make a few $100 in a day. Navinder, sitting in his PJs, was pulling in up to $800,000 a day. It's just a completely different universe.
And here's the kicker. He wasn't doing this to buy Ferraris or mansions. The guy drove a beat-up old car. He shopped at discount grocery stores. For him, it was never, ever about the money. It was about winning. It was about proving to himself and to the world that he could outsmart the entire system, that he could beat the robots at their own game. But on that one day, May 6th, 2010, his little game had absolutely catastrophic consequences for everyone. So now, let's talk about the aftermath, the legacy of this ghost in the machine, both for him and for the rest of us.
So over the years, just by playing his game and beating the machines, Navinder managed to pile up a personal fortune of nearly $70 million, all from his bedroom. Pretty incredible for a guy who started with basically nothing.
But when the feds finally caught up to him, they didn't mess around. The U.S. government threw the entire book at him. The charges they brought carried a potential prison sentence of, wait for it, 380 years. 380 years for essentially clicking a mouse really, really cleverly.
So why? Why such a ridiculously long sentence? Well, the general thinking is that Navinder did more than just break some rules. He was an outsider who pulled back the curtain and showed everyone just how fragile and maybe even how rigged the whole system was. He humiliated Wall Street. And when that happens, the system needs to make an example out of you.
But wait, because the story has one more incredible twist. The government, the very people prosecuting him, realized something pretty important. This guy knew more about how the market actually works than their own top experts did. So in this unbelievable turn of events, they cut a deal. They'd reduce his sentence if he would teach them how the system works so they could catch other people like him. The poacher became the gamekeeper. So what happened to that $70 million he made? Well, in the most tragic, ironic twist of all, the man who could outsmart the most sophisticated financial algorithms on the planet was, turns out, completely naive in the real world. He gave his entire fortune to fraudsters and invested in obvious Ponzi schemes. He lost every single cent. So where does that leave us today? What's the real legacy here? Well, sure, regulators put in some so-called speed bumps, basically circuit breakers, to try and stop a crash that fast from happening again. But the algorithms, they're still out there. And guess what? They're faster and way more powerful than they were back then. As for Navinder, he's banned from trading for life. But the fundamental weakness in the system that he exposed, it's still there. Ultimately, this whole story proved one terrifying thing. Our entire global economy, which is built on a network that operates at speeds we can't even comprehend, can be completely broken by a single person, a single ghost in the machine. And that leaves us with a pretty chilling question, doesn't it? The market today is way faster and more complex than it was in 2010. So the question isn't really if another flash crash will happen. It's when it does, who's going to be the next person we blame?